Karoline Leavitt's powerful response to an atheist journalist left America speechless. An atheist journalist believed he had the ultimate argument, until Karoline Leavitt countered with a story that changed everything. The stage was set on American Perspectives Tonight, a high-profile debate show known for its intense discussions on politics and culture. Under the bright studio lights, Karoline Leavitt, a rising political figure, sat across from Alan Brooks, a seasoned journalist with a reputation for sharp and relentless questioning. Millions tuned in with anticipation, knowing that while the debate was officially about leadership and policy, it was bound to turn into something far more profound. For the first 20 minutes, the conversation followed a standard back and forth: economic policies, government regulations, social issues. Karoline handled each question with confidence, proving herself not just a politician, but a skilled communicator. Then, Alan leaned forward, his tone shifting. "Karoline," he said, "you often talk about faith as a guiding principle in leadership. You even advocate for its role in public policy. But let's be honest, religion, especially Christianity, is declining in this country. Science has provided answers that faith never could. And yet, you continue to speak of faith as if it's some universal truth. Why?" A murmur swept through the audience. Alan wasn't just questioning her beliefs. He was challenging the relevance of faith itself. "There are millions," he continued, "who argue that faith is nothing more than an outdated crutch, something that holds people back rather than moves them forward. Do you think that's fair? Or are you simply unwilling to admit that faith is losing its place in modern America?" Instead of rushing to answer, Karoline took a deep breath. A small, almost imperceptible smile crossed her face. She knew exactly how to respond. "You say faith is an outdated crutch," she said, her voice steady, "that it holds people back. But let me ask you something, Alan. When science doesn't have an answer, what do people turn to?" Alan remained silent, waiting. "It's easy to dismiss faith when life is comfortable," Karoline continued. "When your job is secure, when your family is healthy, when the world makes sense. But what happens when everything falls apart? When your child is dying in a hospital bed? When you're standing at a graveside? When the doctors say there's nothing more they can do? What do you reach for then?" The studio was dead silent. Even the producers behind the cameras had stopped whispering. Alan adjusted his tie. "People turn to faith because they're desperate. That doesn't make it real. It makes it comforting." Karoline nodded, as if she had expected that response. "Comfort isn't a weakness," she replied. "It's human. And faith is more than just comfort. It's resilience. It's hope. It's the belief that even in the darkest moments, there is still meaning. A story that changed everything." Alan leaned back, preparing a counter-argument. But before he could speak, Karoline added something unexpected. "If you really want to know why I defend faith, it's not because of history or politics," she said. "It's because of a woman I met 12 years ago." Alan's brow furrowed. "A woman?" Karoline nodded. "Her name was Margaret, and she taught me something about faith that no debate could ever shake." She paused before continuing, her voice softer. 12 years ago, fresh out of college, I worked as a legislative assistant in Nashville. I thought politics was the most powerful force in the world. But then, I met Margaret. She was 72 years old, attending a community outreach event. I was just there to take notes, listen politely, and leave. But Margaret stopped me in my tracks. She wasn't loud or commanding. She had a quiet strength, the kind that comes from surviving things that should have broken you. She had buried 2 sons, one from cancer, one from a drunk driver. She had lost her husband to a stroke. She had no close family left. And yet, she sat there, smiling, sipping tea, asking me how my life was going. I asked her how she did it, how she endured so much loss and still remained so kind. She told me something I'll never forget. Faith isn't about proof. It's about what keeps you standing when there is no proof. Silence filled the room. She told me that every morning she thanked God, not because life had been easy, but because she was still here, because she believed that even after everything, her days still had purpose. Karoline took a slow breath. I was 22 years old, and I thought I understood strength. But Margaret showed me what it really looked like. And I realized then, faith isn't just something people hold on to when they're desperate. It's what keeps them from falling apart. Alan sat motionless, lips slightly parted as if searching for words. But for once, he had none. A rare moment of honesty. The host, sensing the shift, turned to Alan. "Do you have a response to that?" Alan opened his mouth, then closed it again. He looked at the audience as if searching for something before finally admitting, "I think I need to process that." A murmur rippled through the crowd. It wasn't the dramatic rebuttal they had expected. It was something rarer. A moment of raw honesty. The debate wrapped up soon after, but the conversation was far from over. The nation reacts. Within hours, social media exploded. Headlines read, "Karoline Leavitt leaves journalist speechless," a debate moment no one saw coming. Even late-night talk shows, often critical of conservative figures, covered the exchange, not with mockery, but with genuine discussion. And then, there was Alan. For a journalist known for quick post-debate reactions, he remained silent. No tweets, no interviews, no damage control. Until the next morning, when he finally broke his silence with a single post. "I've been in journalism for over 30 years. Last night was the first time I walked away from an interview realizing I had more questions than answers." That single statement set off another wave of discussion, a conversation that couldn't be ignored. In the days that followed, the debate transcended politics. It became impossible to scroll through the internet without seeing people dissecting what had happened. One comment stood out from a well-known comedian famous for mocking religion. "I still don't believe in God, but that woman made me wish I did." A prominent scientist tweeted, "Faith and science don't have to be enemies. Last night I was reminded why so many still hold on to belief even in uncertainty." And then came the emails. One from a woman named Rebecca read, "I haven't stepped foot in a church in 20 years. I lost my faith a long time ago. But after watching your debate, I sat in my car and cried. Not because I suddenly found God, but because I realized I missed believing in something bigger than myself. Thank you for making me think." Karoline read the email 3 times. She had spent her career debating policies, fighting for legislation. But this was different. This wasn't about winning an argument. It was about a conversation people had been too afraid to have. And sometimes, a single conversation was all it took.